The emergency AOA board meeting was held in the community center's fluorescent-lit conference room, where Karen had presided over hundreds of similar gatherings. But tonight, she sat at the far end of the table, no longer the commanding presence she'd once been. The other four board members, Janet, Mike, Patricia, and newcomer David Kim, faced her with expressions ranging from disappointment to outright hostility. "Karen," Patricia began, her voice carefully measured, "the board has received a petition signed by 78% of homeowners requesting your resignation as president." Karen's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. 78%? That's impossible. These people don't understand what I've done for them. The property values alone have actually decreased by 12% since you took over. Mike interrupted, sliding a real estate report across the table. "Turns out potential buyers are specifically avoiding our neighborhood because of our reputation for aggressive HOA enforcement." The words hit Karen like a physical blow. Everything she believed about her mission, her purpose, her value to the community was being systematically dismantled. But instead of the rage that had fueled her for so long, she felt something else creeping in: doubt. "I have a proposal," David Kim said quietly. He was new to the board, having moved in just 6 months ago with his young family. "Instead of resignation, what if we tried something different? What if Karen took a leave of absence and used that time to really listen to what the community wants?" "Listen?" Karen's voice was smaller now, uncertain. "I've been listening for 5 years. I've responded to every complaint, every concern." "You've responded to violations," Janet corrected gently. "But when was the last time you actually talked to a neighbor about what they loved about living here? When did you last ask someone what would make their family happier?" Karen opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. She couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, her role as community protector had transformed into something else entirely. She'd become the very thing she thought she was fighting against, a source of chaos and unhappiness. "There's something else," David Kim continued. "Eduardo Rodriguez wants to speak with you, privately." An hour later, Karen stood on Eduardo's front porch, facing the man she'd spent months battling. His desert sand fence looked warm and inviting in the evening light, nothing like the eyesore she'd convinced herself it was. "Mrs. Pemberton," Eduardo said, his voice surprisingly gentle, "please come in." His living room was filled with family photos spanning decades. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren smiled from every surface. Karen found herself studying a picture of Eduardo and his late wife painting their original fence, the same fence she'd been so determined to change. "She picked that color," Eduardo said, following her gaze. "Maria spent 3 weekends testing different shades until she found the perfect one. Said it reminded her of the beach where we'd honeymooned in Mexico." Karen felt something crack inside her chest. "Eduardo, I didn't know." "How could you? You never asked." His words weren't cruel, just factual. "Mrs. Pemberton, I don't think you're a bad person, but you've forgotten something important about being neighbors." "What's that?" "We're supposed to care about each other first. The rules come second." As Karen drove home through the neighborhood she'd spent years controlling, she saw it with new eyes. Behind every perfectly maintained exterior was a family with their own hopes, struggles, and stories. She'd been so focused on the surface that she'd forgotten about the humanity underneath. But change wouldn't be easy. The video of her courtroom meltdown was still spreading. Her reputation was in ruins, and the community she tried to protect was more divided than ever. As she pulled into her driveway, Karen noticed something that made her heart skip. A small group of neighbors had gathered at the corner, talking in hushed tones and glancing toward her house. Were they planning something? Another petition, a confrontation, or perhaps something else entirely? Karen sat in her car for a long moment, watching the group disperse. Tomorrow, she would have to decide who she wanted to be: the woman who'd raged against a judge in defense of fence colors, or someone entirely different. Someone who might actually deserve the community she'd came to love. The question was it too late to find out? 4 hours in the county holding cell had done nothing to cool Karen's fury. If anything, The concrete walls and fluorescent lights had only amplified her sense of injustice. She'd been released on her own recognizance, but not before Judge Martinez had made it crystal clear that any further outbursts would result in extended jail time. The drive back to Willowbrook Estates felt like a funeral march. Karen's pristine BMW crawled through the subdivision's perfectly manicured streets, past the houses she'd spent years monitoring, measuring, and micromanaging. Every mailbox, every lawn ornament, every garage door represented battles she'd fought and won. She was the guardian of order in a world gone mad. But something had shifted. As she pulled into her driveway, she noticed things she'd never seen before. Mrs. Chen's rose bushes were actually quite beautiful, even if they were 3 inches taller than the HOA guidelines specified. The Johnson family's new mailbox, while technically autumn bronze instead of classic black, actually complemented their brick facade nicely. No, she thought, shaking her head violently. This is exactly the kind of thinking that destroys communities. Her phone had been buzzing incessantly since her release. 17 missed calls from other HOA board members, 43 text messages, and her email inbox was hemorrhaging notifications. She scrolled through message after message of neighbors expressing their opinions about her courtroom performance. "Karen, what the hell were you thinking?" came the voice of Janet Morrison, her longtime ally and HOA secretary, when Karen finally returned her call. "I was thinking about protecting our community," Karen snapped, pacing her granite-countered kitchen. "Someone has to take a stand against the chaos that's." "You called a judge a public servant like it was a dirty word. It's all over Facebook, Karen. Someone live-streamed the whole thing. We're getting calls from news stations." Karen's blood ran cold. "News stations. Channel 7 wants to interview you. They're calling it HOA horror story. When rule enforcement goes too far." The video already has 50,000 views and counting. Karen's hands trembled as she opened her laptop. There it was. HOA Karen loses it in court. Full meltdown video. The comment section was a wasteland of mockery and outrage. People were sharing her home address, her phone number, her husband's workplace. The life she'd built, the authority she'd wielded, was crumbling in real time. But the worst part was the video itself. Watching herself on screen, Karen saw something she'd never noticed before. She looked unhinged. Her voice was shrill, her gestures frantic, her arguments petty and mean-spirited. This wasn't the composed community leader she imagined herself to be. This was a woman who'd lost all perspective, all humanity, in pursuit of meaningless rules. Her husband, David, came home that evening to find her sitting in their perfectly appointed living room, staring at her phone. "Karen, honey, are you okay? I heard about what happened, and they're calling me a monster," she whispered. "People are saying I should be banned from the neighborhood. Someone started a petition to have me removed from the HOA board." David sat beside her, his face creased with concern. "Maybe it's time to step back, take a break from the HOA work. We could take that trip to Europe you've been wanting." "Step back?" Karen's voice was sharp again. "David, I've given everything to this community. I sacrificed my time, my energy, my relationships to keep this place perfect. And now they want me to just give up? Maybe perfect isn't what people want anymore." Karen Pemberton stood in the middle of Judge Martinez's courtroom, her manicured finger jabbing the air like a weapon. "This is absolutely ridiculous. Do you have any idea who I am? I'm the president of Willowbrook Estates HOA, and I will not be lectured by some public servant." The bailiff's hand moved instinctively toward his belt. The courtroom gallery, packed with Karen's neighbors who'd come to witness this spectacle, collectively held its breath. Judge Martinez, a woman who'd presided over murders and drug cartels without flinching, slowly removed her reading glasses. "Mrs. Pemberton," the judge said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who'd never needed to raise it, "you will address this court with respect, or you will be held in contempt." Karen's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Contempt? I'm here because my neighbors are too stupid to follow simple HOA rules. Mr. Rodriguez painted his fence the wrong shade of beige, wrong shade, and now I'm the villain? I've dedicated 5 years of my life to maintaining property values in our community. This whole mess had started 6 months ago when Karen had issued her 14th citation to elderly Eduardo Rodriguez for his desert sand fence instead of the approved Sahara Whisper. When Eduardo ignored her demands to repaint, Karen had escalated to legal action, claiming the fence violated HOA covenants and demanding $500 in daily fines. "Your Honor," Eduardo's lawyer interjected, "my client is 83 years old, living on a fixed income, and the HOA is demanding over $90,000 in accumulated fines for a fence that's literally one shade lighter than the approved color." Karen whirled around, her blonde bob whipping dramatically. "Rules are rules. If we start making exceptions for every sob story, our entire community will descend into chaos. Next thing you know, people will be parking RVs in their driveways and painting their houses rainbow colors." "Mrs. Pemberton," Judge Martinez said, standing slowly, "you will turn around and face this court immediately." But Karen was on a roll now, her voice rising to a theatrical crescendo. "I've seen neighborhoods destroyed by this kind of beating heart nonsense. Property values plummet, decent families move away, and before you know it, you're living next to drug dealers and bail IFF." The single word cracked through the courtroom like a whip. Karen finally turned back to face the judge, her face flushed with indignation. She'd never been interrupted before, never been told to stop talking when she was clearly in the right. "Mrs. Pemberton, you are now in contempt of court. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Pemberton to holding." Karen's mouth fell open. "You can't be serious. I'm the victim here. I'm protecting my community from—" The bailiff's firm grip on her arm cut off her protest. As she was led away, she called over her shoulder, "This isn't over. I know my rights. I'll have your job for this." The courtroom door slammed shut behind her, leaving 30 stunned neighbors staring at the empty space where Hurricane Karen had just been.